How's it going, man? We're back.
We are back. It feels like November because it feels like it's been 7.5 weeks since Ironman Wisconsin, but it hasn't. It's been about fucking 10 days, and it seems like just as long since our last podcast. Obviously, we took the earlier part of the week off, to take care of things that matter more in life. And but yeah, it's September 18th, the year 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 877.
Yeah, and I was telling you, man. It seems like Wisconsin was about, like you said, 2 months ago. It was like 10 days ago, and here we are. But anyway, back in the saddle and ready to dish out all the key hacks.
All the life hacks. Oh, and I'm sure, dude, it's gonna be. Listen, like I don't. Did you watch any of the World Championships this past weekend?
I really didn't.
All right, so I give. I mean, I know it's been like a huge talking point for a lot of people, and I will say, like, I think it was, everyone up top, like in Ironman, and really just like across the industry, is reporting that. Even before this last weekend in Nice, that Ironman registration and participations was at pre-COVID levels for the first time.
Nice.
2018, the sport is growing again at like I wouldn't say a rapid rate, but I feel like, it is like there's a steady increase. I've even just had like more like fringe conversations with people around here that live close by that have no idea even like what I do for a job, and just kind of like mention and talking about it and stuff like that. So the sport's growing, and then you have an event and a result like you did this last weekend, and it was there's I mean, we could talk about it for 5 hours, but there's a laundry list of things that I think were like, at least for me, I didn't wake up. I mean, I guess I did. I woke up at 4 to watch as much of it as I could to watch like, in the bike ride. I didn't get up to watch the whole thing, so I'd have basically been up the whole night. But one, to have like a clean podium sweep from the same country that hasn't happened since Germany did it. You had Casper Stornes obviously taking the win. Gustav Iden, which I predicted in the top 3.
You did.
Making his comeback. Yeah, he got second, which is really cool to see him back. Like I honestly don't know if there's a more likable person in the sport. He is just like, anyway, he got second. Christian Blumenfeld got third. They all trained together. They trained together every single day for the last year. So like, not just being from the same country. Last time, the country, I think it was Germany, they obviously, none of them trained together. But these guys basically trained together and lived together for the past year. And one of the coolest things, there's a couple like just kind of like high level observations I made as like an athlete, a coach, and just a real fan of the sport, was my highlight of the kind of the post finish line feel an interview was Gustav Iden, like the first words out of his mouth. I mean, he's got, he won Kona, he's won 70.3 worlds. In 2022 was arguably the best triathlete on the planet across all distances, at least 70.3 in full. And then obviously he had injury. He lost his mom, was going through some hardship. And the first words out of his mouth, and he looked like emotion was like, "I'm just so proud of Casper." Like, I'm just so proud. Like, and I can see that, right? It's like the guy you've been training with day in and day out to put the work in. Like, I think it just speaks volumes to the kind of guy he is, and how great he is for sports. So like to see that there was I think there was like 15 or 16 run changes in like lead changes in the first half marathon, which is, you just never see that. Usually in the male race and also in like the female race, like, usually you can just kind of go do whatever you want to for the rest of the day after the first 6K, because the day's over. Like, somebody's walking and they're so far ahead. You're like, you had no idea who was going to win until the last like 3K. I mean, I had ideas, but so one, I think that it was great optics for the sport. I mean, honestly, like arguably like couldn't like 3 incredibly nice guys. You look at the top 5 guys that finished. They all had different bikes. They all had different, swim skins. It's like, we put so much thought on gear, and it's just like, that really doesn't like probably mean nearly as much as you probably think it does. Then you had, so you had those three guys to kind of taking it. You had the fact that they've basically been working together for the last year on their own, left their quote unquote, smarter than everyone else scientific coach after underperforming for 2 years and went back to their kind of stuff that they had been doing. Right. And then the other thing I thought was just fascinating was that, and this is just my take, I could be completely wrong, but he had Sam Laidlow, which I thought he was going to win. He actually pulled over on the side of the swim with hip flexor cramps and then like swam backwards towards shore for a minute to like quit and then hop back into the race. He was almost going to quit, and he worked his way back up to the front of the race. But I think the day was over because this just goes to show you, like, in my opinion, a lot of people say like the day wouldn't have played any different, but I thought Sam Laidlow's cramping in the swim like put him about 2 minutes back on the bike. That caused Christian Blumenfeld to overpace the bike because he didn't expect. So basically what happens was Laidlow came out about 2 minutes back to what he normally would have. Everybody thought Sam Laidlow, Schomburg, Jamie Riddle, Martin Van Riel, all these guys are coming out the front. They're going to just drill the bike to try to get a gap on the Norwegians and Magnus Ditlev, a couple other guys. But they came out of the water and they're like, where the hell is Sam Laidlow? Like he's a top 3 swimmer and he's gone, and he's easily the fastest biker in the sport, and it's not even close. And he's nowhere to be found. And so I'm sure like Blumenfeld, Eden, Stornes, all those guys came out and they're like, oh man, like, they probably assume Laidlow's up the road, one of their biggest, competitors. And here comes Laidlow, after, kind of finding his mojo back again, storming past those guys. Well, Eden and Stornes just kind of drive back and they're like, I can't hold this guy's power. Like he's just going too hard. Blumenfeld, no way. He held. He probably saw this is the only guy I've got to compete against, and then basically rode with him on his wheel, as he usually does. He is kind of a pack rat, which kind of annoys me a little bit, but sat on his wheel as much as he could for the remainder of the ride. Probably burnt way too many matches. So he let someone else, and actually someone else's misfortune, dictate his day. And I thought he burned all of his matches. Got off the bike together. Obviously, Blumenfeld ended up cramping the last like half K, barely made it to the finish line. Casper Stornes comes out, takes a longer transition. You saw Blumenfeld and Eden storm up, start running with Laidlow and Van Riel. Then like the last like half marathon, it was the basically the Norwegian show. But Stornes, the guy who eventually won, dropped back because he was like, I can't keep up with these guys. They're surging after surge after surge, drop back surge. He was like, I can't hold this. I'm just gonna do my thing, hold 330s per K, and that's my best day. I'm not going to worry about their surging. I'm not going to take a front, take a turn at the front in the headwind. I'm not going to play the games by yo-yoing front, come back. I'm just going to let them go. Well, the last like 5 or 6K, as he held steady at his 330, which was his own game plan, there he goes, cruising past Eden, cruising past Blumenfeld. And I honestly, I think those are like my big 2 takeaways were from the race was Stornes won because he did his game plan from start to finish. He rode his exact race. He wasn't deterred. A lot of people say like, the pros have to be reactionary. They have to, play the game and play the race because it is so much different than age group races. But he didn't. He played his own game. And he even said it in his interview. He's like, I knew I couldn't hold that. I was sticking to my plan on the bike, where I think Blumenfeld didn't. I actually think it had Laidlow swam top 3 like he normally does, and Blumenfeld never saw him because they never would have bridged the gap up with those guys because none of them can bike with him. Then he would have ran his own race, come off the bike fresh, and probably won. But he didn't. He got caught up in someone else's plan and ended up probably cost him because he got bumped back all the way to 3rd. So I just thought like, again, there's a million different takeaways, but, one was just how cool it was that they were all up there as good friends and training partners. And then the second one was just like how it to me, it was probably the most well-executed marathon I've ever seen in my entire life in the World Championships, because it was almost like an even split, and how he had the confidence to just say, in a World Championship, I'm just going to let them go. And then you got age groupers who got, nothing like that, on the line, that can't stand for somebody to pass them going up a hill, and they want to burn their matches because they don't want someone to pass them. And just how important it is to, one, have a game plan, stick to your game plan, and not be so distracted and get caught up in the moment, even though it's so tempting to do that. And I just say, again, like, there's a billion different takeaways to the whole thing. But one, I thought it was really great, like, again, great optics for the sport. I think it's going to do wonders for the sport. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw something similar in the female race with as many people who are going to be in the start line for that. So, I mean, it was really great to watch. And again, I'll just, because I guess I can say I'm a fanboy of Gustav P. And it's just really good to see him back after everything he's gone through, and just how awesome of a dude he is to just be so excited for a guy that just beat you. And I think that also, like, to me, says a whole lot about their perspective of what the sport's supposed to be about. And yeah, you can hate to lose, but, like, I guarantee you that comes from just a real true passion and love for training, and just completely loving the whole lifestyle, than just obsessing about one race. Because if they obsessed about one race, then a second place or a third would be completely devastating. And you'd be so pissed, even if it's your training partner, you'd be so pissed because your year and your triathlon life is ruined. And you find that with age group athletes who don't even do this for a living, who don't even make any money off this, and they get so irritated and mad at, like, even a borderline below average result. It's just, I think the perspective that they have, in my opinion, is as much as to do as you want to make about, things that they do in and out of training. I think it's their perspective and how much they love the sport is the true reason that they've been in the sport for so long and been so great at it.
Yeah. I mean, I always find it interesting to look at how the pros do. And everything you're saying is really interesting, because you're talking about how Casper, he just stayed in his bucket. But these guys are so in tune with, they train so much. I would assume that they understand, what they're doing, even though, like, maybe Blumenfeld, blasted the bike, but he, maybe in his mind, he's like, well, I've done this before, maybe I can do it again. Or is he pushing Laidlow out of his butt? I don't know. There's different thoughts about that. But when I love thinking about how that applies to age groupers, because, like, when you talk about Casper was, and I'm going to have to talk in miles because I'm not into the kilometer thing. So
I'm not either.
I'm too old for that.
Regurgitating what I watched.
Yeah. So, like, if you're saying, like, he knows that he's got to be careful of going, maybe 5 seconds faster pace per mile or something like that. In an age grouper's world, that might mean 30 seconds or a minute, of adjustment. And I keep thinking about it. So, like, I had, in my mind, something, and I had to realize that I would have had to have gone, maybe 30 seconds a mile faster to get what I thought I might be able to do, but I knew that I couldn't do it, so it's just such it's so much more pinpointed, I think, in their world, as far as, like, really being in tune with that. But it could be a wide range for some age group around a marathon. You might get out there and think, well, I'm going to run this, and I think I'm going to do that. But you're talking about 5 seconds for them, but like literally a minute faster, and how that relates to what could really happen as far, because you're looking at, Blumenfeld kind of went too hard, whatever, and he still only lost by 5 minutes, overall or whatever. And it's just wild to me, because that could mean, in the age groupers world, an hour and a half or something. Yeah, because it's all like that fine line of how much can you handle. And obviously they're training 30 hours a week, and they have a better grip on what's going on in those fine, very fine margins. But with age group, it's so much, it's just so relative, but it's so much different. But I think it's the same thing is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? It's like, we think we have certain things. And like you said, with those surges and things of that nature, obviously they train much more for surges. I'm guessing, that's just part of what they have to do sometimes. And how do you get through it and respond and, get back in your pocket. But, just thinking about how a lot of us handle these races and have certain things in our mind or whatever, but they're racing for the top and we're just racing for our top, and it just takes a little more risk sometimes. And I think that we tend to maybe take risks that we don't even realize are risk, because they seem like they might be normal, but when we get out of our ability zone or whatever, and it's just so wild to me that 5 seconds could literally mean a minute and a half pace for us or something like that if we're trying to, really cook something. And it's just such a wide range. And, and then you start thinking, well, maybe if you can settle in and instead of thinking you have to go a minute faster per mile or whatever, and just think of it in terms of like, well, let's try 10 seconds or 15 seconds faster, and really see if that works versus, just trying to save the whole day in 2 miles or something like that. I don't know. It's just really crazy.
It is. I mean, you said it, because I mean the delta between what age groupers lose and what pros lose is, I mean, think about the fact that they went under 8 hours on that course is insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unreal. I mean, I think Laidlow broke his own bike record from 2 years before by like 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, it's insane what they're able to do. So you take him, Blumenfeld losing 5 minutes as an age grouper, at least losing an over an hour on just the run, because he came off even. And I think like that's, decision making to me is again, like it's so crucial in longer course racing, and because we talk about this a lot, like the differences between short course and long course. And in short course, you're going at a higher rate of speed, and it's definitely like we're neither one of us going to argue that it's not hard, because it is very hard. Like a lot of people don't do sprints because they don't like going all out. Like I always tell like that funny story. Like I did the Mach 10 triathlon back when we lived in Nashville, and I did the bike blind, and because I was trying to see what I could do on the bike, and because I'd only been doing 70.3s and fulls, and I was like, I'm gonna hammer this bike ride. And I go out there and I'm like, get off the bike, I'm like, hammered it, mission accomplished. I get back off the bike, I go download the data, and 220, same 70.3 power I've been putting out all year. Mm-hmm. I was like, see, you just don't have that extra gear, man. You got to get it. And so anyway, but you can make mistakes and not pay for them, because one, if you make a mistake in fueling, like you still have enough inside of you to basically get through the race. I mean, I did a sprint distance, not this year, but last year, on nothing, like completely fasted, and was completely fine and just like rocked through it. And I think I was 4th overall. So like you can make mistakes. You can make mistakes, and it's not, you're going to pay the price, but you can hold on because you got a mile and a half left. Right. And also the condensed time, the condensed mileage means you're on course, and you're less likely to make, poor decisions. It's like the sprint in Olympic is like the 10 o'clock curfew of triathlon. Nothing, and then after that, like the half Ironman and the full Ironman is like the past 10 o'clock. It's like nothing good ever happens past 10. And that's basically like the half Ironman. And the full is like the more time you've got out there, the more time you have to make mistakes. And a lot of people are so concerned about winning the minute instead of winning their own race and what that looks like. Because it does, like it feels good to win the minute. It feels good to surge up that climb. It feels good. Like I'm sure it felt great for Laidlow to think, I'm holding on to Laidlow's wheel. He's the best biker in the sport. He's going to pull me to the front, and there's no way anybody else can run it. And honestly, I think it ruined his race. And I also think that if Laidlow had to come out in front with the 2-minute gap on those guys, with the other like Uber bikers, they could have worked together and put in a 4.5 minute gap, and he wouldn't have had to do so many surges. And I actually think he could have won. And so like, it's just one, you have to deal with what the day gives you and who you are that day. Because the also interesting piece, right, is if you listen to a lot of the interviews post race, is a lot of athletes, and this is, I think, like a really great message for every age group athlete out there, is that you can be as quote unquote as scientific as you want to be, and you can obsess about numbers. And you look at all these athletes, right? that have this entire fucking entourage with them. They've got a physio, they've got a bike coach, they've got a run coach, they've got a swim coach, they've got a massage therapist, they got a bike tech, they've got an agent, they don't have anything else going on in their life except for this, and they can have all this stuff. They can have every bike given to them, and every T is crossed, every I is dotted, and they can still go out on a race day on the biggest day, the only day they've been training for all year, and lay a giant fucking egg and not have it, and just wake up and not have it. And you think about how completely different it is for age group athletes, right? Like how much less of that they have, but they still expect that same thing. One, you just never know, right? What race day is going to give you. So you have to listen to your body. But two, it was also interesting to watch, like the top three guys, they don't have all those. They don't have, they got the girlfriends and it's a couple of friends. They don't have like this giant paparazzi that follows them around. They're kind of like honestly, kind of like the monks of triathlon. They kind of like just hang out together and do their own thing and then come back out and kick everybody's ass. Mm-hmm. And you've got everybody else that's, spending 88 hours in the wind tunnel every 5 seconds and moving their water bottles around and, trying to find every single half millimeter to gain, on their bike and save a couple extra watts and their extra, fancy stuff on their shins and their calf sleeves. And, and they're like, hey, we're going to go out on a coffee ride for 4.5 hours and grab pizza and take a selfie. I think it's just incredible for the sport, because I think what they went through the last 2 years with what they would admit is underperforming with this overly scientific approach and less enjoyment and love for the sport, less entourage. And now people are just going on that, people are having just, I need a bike specific coach and a run specific coach and all this. And I'm like again, like we talked last week about, the more input you have, the more noise you create. Right. And can you really concentrate? Are you better off concentrating in the library? You're better off concentrating in the middle of like a freaking Rage Against the Machine concert. Yeah. More noise and more stuff isn't always better. And I think that's, something that we gravitate towards. And I think the sport, honestly, like, not to their credit, but to their popularity and their coaching, the last two before that were was how scientific and how much smarter, but still, and even like all these guys that have all these things going for them, happen on race day 2 for the females, is you can have all this and you can just wake up and you'd be like, I got nothing. I saw multiple interviews with guys that were like, I had nothing. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I'm just tired of waking up and not having the juice and the best day. And I'm like, and if they don't have it, stop expecting it to happen every single time you race to have the best day ever, because you never ever know. And you got to play the game as best you can. That's why I thought it was so commendable. Like I've been a Sam Laidlow fan. Like I went back and watched some of the video yesterday while I was on the trainer, like just watching him, he looked coming out of T1. He looked like an age grouper coming out of the water with an hour and 55 minute swim split.
Come on.
I'm serious. I know it sounds bad. I swear to God, he looked defeated. He had no giddy up. I didn't even think he was going to make it past the dismount line.
He might have forgot his ketone IQ or whatever.
He might have forgot his athletic
I've never
greens
seen
and his
him
ketone
so much
IQ
in my life.
And it's like again, but then to have to be, I think I remember post race, he said, I'm proud of my effort. I'm just not proud of the result. Because obviously, for a guy like him, you race to win, but he was proud of the fact that he probably had to, inflict way more damage on his body to get to the front of the race to have a chance to win, because he came out behind. But I just think it's it's a great lesson to, I mean, freaking Magnus Ditlev was sitting at a bus stop halfway. I mean, he stole my bus stop routine from Wisconsin. Like, you know, wish Nice could send some of those bus stops to Madison, but you know, like it just, and they DNF, you know? So it's like, as age groupers, like, remember, like, you know, you're never, ever, ever guaranteed anything on race day. It's just your body has no idea. It's just another day on the calendar. And you have to listen to your body. You have to respond. Like, again, like that's, you know, we get so obsessed with how perfect we can make everything now and how many extra, you know, sensors and data can we collect and then make these decisions. And, you know, a lot of times it's just not best case scenario for all, because it's still, you still have to totally trust the input to then trust the output. And there's just a lot of things that go into that. So, you know, I say all that to say, like, I think especially as age groupers looking into the sport and how great it can be, you know, remember to add things to it that are going to add more joy, and that's going to increase your longevity in the sport. It's going to increase your likelihood to do certain things within the sport, which is also going to increase your likelihood of reaching like the top level you can reach. But it might not be tomorrow. You know, it might not be in a year. You know, it could be in 2 or 3 years. And so like to stop putting that pressure on yourself and to, you know, enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? Like the how much healthier it's making you. And again, I just think it's things that we get lost of, and it's a great reminder to see like these, the top, you know, insane athletes of the sport that are having these days that, yeah, they, you know, a couple of them have great days and a couple of them just like have nothing. You know, like Martin Van Riel, I thought he was going to pull a Tim O'Donnell. He hasn't been able to do any running of any kind, like for the last like 6 or 7 weeks, and he ends up getting 4th. You know, it's like, so don't let these injuries or niggles or even like, you know, periods of lack of motivation derail you and take you out of a sport that can give you so much. But a lot of times it's just you're expecting way too much in like a short period. And I think it's a great lesson for us all.
Man, you really hit that. I really resonate with what you said because, you know, I just think we talked a little bit about mental capacity before this cast, and I think sometimes that, you know, maybe I'm just throwing this out there, but like Laylo, he came out and he probably felt like he had a lot of pressure on him. Then he had, you know, he wasn't having his day, you know, and then he tried to make his day happen. And I mean, how can you argue with what he did? But it's like, sometimes I think we have limits and we've tried to push them. And I used to do that. I remember back early in the, you know, some of my earlier races, I would maybe come out of the swim, you know, feeling a little bit like he did. And then I'm like, I got to go make this time. And I push it and I just have that mental fortitude and maybe the training, you know, to be able to pull it off a little faster than I am now. But this year I learned a lot, I think, because going into that race, I kind of had it, but I also knew I kind of didn't have it. And I knew what I had. And I basically took what I had and, you know, I tried to, you know, push it a little harder and get out. But, you know, basically I was an hour faster than I was the last 3 years, but I was an hour slower than I used to get. So I'm in the middle somewhere. But I came out of this going, okay, I've probably am more optimistic now about, like you said, it just takes time and you have to really, you know, work at it for a while and then kind of pull things back together almost. It's almost like I peaked and then I went back to the doldrums and then kind of pulled myself out a little bit and worked on the things that I needed to work on, which for me, I erred on the side I told you, like mainly aerobic training and base and stuff this year. So I felt stronger, but I just felt like I didn't have maybe my explosiveness. And, so now I'm thinking about that. I'm like, all right, well, I'm in a good spot now, probably better than I had been in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe for training overall. And now I feel good about maybe like really going after what I used to do, you know, which is obviously training harder and, you know, working on, you know, things like hills and getting a little faster and, you know, just being more explosive on the bike and things like that, which I really haven't done a ton of, but I felt good. And, you know, I just went with what I had, and that's a really good lesson too. It's sort of like when you don't get out of yourself, you can have a solid race, right? it may not be the best race or the one that you hope for in the, perfect conditions, but it's in there. So it didn't fall apart. And that's really where I was most happy with, is that I'm like, all right, well, this is pretty solid. It didn't blow up like I have in the past few years. So, right there, I think, I do it. I think a lot of people underestimate, the actual sort of, it's not super long-term, but longer-term planning and goals to try to get where you want to get. It's like you got to set the table. And you talk about, building the cake before you put all the icing on it. And I think that I'm finally, have maybe built a sturdier cake to work with in the future. So it's just interesting. It's like you think about what some of these guys do in these pro races, and and I can't imagine the how they would mentally struggle with the idea of losing by 10 minutes. I mean, it's just crazy to think about the margin of error they have, and and how many pieces they have to put together. But I think with age groupers, it's just by not blowing up this year, I cut an hour off of last year. Same course, same deal. And it's just amazing to me how these types of gains are just right there if you can, kind of stay with what you're doing and think about it a little bit more long term.
I mean, every athlete that has a race anytime in the near future or this weekend should listen to what you just said over and over and over again. Because, I mean, especially again at long course racing, like one of the biggest issues that I see and obstacles that athletes have when they toe the line at a race distance is they train with somebody that they're not. They race with the mindset and the hope of somebody that they're not. They either race with the mindset of the person that they thought they were going to be when they started training, what they hope they could be, what they've done on like maybe their best day in training, or they come in with a lack of confidence. And yes, like, there's again, I've never heard anybody say like, no one's ever said like they had too much energy at the end of an Ironman or the last 10K, but like you said, you raced within yourself and you had a really objective view of, like you said, like I knew who I was and I knew who I wasn't. And I think that is like one of the biggest strengths people can take to a race is know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and then play to them. Because most people have way too much confidence in their strengths and even more confidence in what are actually their weaknesses. And then they make continuous mistakes over and over and over again. I mean, and we see this all the time, like as coaches, and I think just as people like hope gets people a long way. But one of my favorite quotes is hope is paralyzing. It just keeps you stuck in place. Like there's no action. You just cling to this like naive positivity that's not rooted in anything that's actually reality or objective. And then you can cling to it for a really long time until you hit the first 5-6K mark of the run. And then you have to walk. And then it all comes crashing down. And it's just like, it's very insightful to think that way. I think for all athletes, who am I? Did I do the training? And don't look at the last 6 weeks, look at the last 6 months to a year. And that goes for great training and poor training because it all adds up. And I think that, when you go into a race and you have to have 3 to 4 different plans, but you also have to understand that there's a high likelihood you may end up using like a hybrid of all 4. And then the thing that like that boxing, everybody has a plan to take a punch in the mouth. Well, most people get punched in the mouth in the first like 300 meters of the swim. And they like realize that their day is a little bit different, right? Or they drop their nutrition, or they get a flat, or their legs aren't, waking up, or they can't hold their nutrition down. Like being able to pivot, being able to go to different plans. And then like asking yourself, if you made a plan and it failed, why did it fail? Like where did you overestimate your ability? Right? Did you try something new on race day that didn't make any sense? Did you go out and do something too much in training and give you false confidence? and that's just, I think it's one of those things that we all need to go back to in all levels of racing, like regardless of distance, is what, how am I setting myself up for success? And like, yes, my plan was to succeed, but did I really do what was required to then be successful? And I think a lot of athletes get caught up in the belief in their original plan, but not so much, but their race plan isn't rooted in their execution of said plan. And I think that's where a lot of people continually make mistakes. Is you just have to know who you are. Who are you on race day? What do you have? And a lot of times you can just tell when you wake up today. Who are you today? How do you feel today? And a lot of times, like, you should just know that honestly within like the first 10 minutes of you waking up. Do you got it today or you don't got it today? Yeah, you might like rally late, or yeah, you might crash, but like a lot of times you just kind of know. And most people know the same thing, is like hop on the bike within the first 5 minutes, you're like, I got it today. Like, I got it. Or the first 5 minutes are like, this is going to be a long ride, because you don't have it. And race day is no different. See, but you got to play to that. If you hopped on the bike in training in the first 5 minutes of like an interval session, you do the warm, but you're like, I just do not have it today. Like, I am smoked. I mean, yes, some people are like, I'm just going to hammer it, then they don't finish. Right? That might you might get with that in training. You hop off your bike, go upstairs in the kitchen, get your snack, and go back along your day, and then write your comment to your coach. That's fine in training. On race day, that's not going to happen. You're going to get to like the halfway point of the bike and be like, my day is over. This is going to be the longest next 8 hours of my life. Or you could be like, you know what, this isn't feeling good. I'm just going to keep it easy until either it gets better or till it's over. And you just you have to be able to make those decisions to get the most, again, like, and that's the question you have to ask yourself. And I think the confidence you have to have too, and the resolve, is to think, is it great? Is it wonderful? Is it, a superb feeling to execute a race, and also like not only execute it, but also have a day where your fitness like was at 100% execution, 10 out of 10. Your body's ability to perform, 10 out of 10. Well, a lot of times those never match up. It's like, my execution was 8 out of 10. My ability to perform today was a 7 out of 10. And then the average score of that is your race result. But a lot of people, like, you being able to get a 10 out of 10 execution and getting a 10 out of 10 of who you are that day gets you the best result on that day that you were capable of. Not the one that you wanted the most, not the one that you thought you might have, but that's what the day yielded. And that is a thought process and a feel that has nothing to do with a number that your watch is spitting out at you. It's just something that you inherently should know. And if you don't know that, then it's something that you have got to work on if you want to be successful in this sport. Like, I woke up today, again, like I told you before the podcast, like super early, got some work done, single parenting this week. I had originally had like an aerobic ride on schedule for today, and it's lightning here, so I ended up having to I wanted to get it in before our podcast, and because the rest of my day is busy, and I was like, all right, well, then it was lightning, so Hayden couldn't ride his bike to school, so I had to drop him off. So it was time crunch, but I knew that I felt like really good, and I also felt like really, really motivated. And so I got on the bike, and I was like, I feel really good today. And if the first 5 minutes of the bike, like the warm up, confirmed that, then instead of doing my aerobic ride, I'm just gonna fucking hammer it today. And after the first 5 minutes, I thought to myself, you do have it today. So I exited said aerobic workout and just absolutely smashed myself for an hour and 10 minutes and felt amazing. But I knew it when I woke up today. And like, I knew it before I got on the bike. I was like, you just feel good today. You have your body's clicking and your head's clicking. And then I used the first 5 minutes of the ride to confirm what I didn't need my recovery score or anything like fancy. I just needed to this is just what I just knew it. I know what it's like to feel like that. And I was like, I just got it today. And I went out and I had it. And I had a really, like, one of my best rides in probably 4 or 5 months, and going about my day. But like if it hadn't have been confirmation of that, then I just would have like rode and just, stuck with the plan and went aerobic, And so like I say all that to say, like, you have to learn like your body's signals, bad day, great day, like mediocre day, and then play. And as much as it might sound ridiculous, say like, if you're having a bad day, play to those strengths. That's your strength for the day, is to listen to your body. And if you don't have it, don't have it. Like, recognize that you don't, and don't try to have it, because that's how you dig a bigger hole. And the same thing goes for races. Like, you can dig your hole in the swim, and you can dig an even deeper hole in the bike, and then you're meeting the Undertaker on the run. Or you can just understand, like, man, I don't have a lot of wiggle room today. I better take this like overly easy. And honestly, like in an Ironman, you're looking at a 60, like you just said, you're looking at a 60 to 90 minute swing. That's an insane amount of time, right? Just based on decision making and doing, an audit of your body and checking its own engine line and thinking, what's the best choice I can make today?
Yeah, I think about it in terms of it's sort of a continual audit in a sense too, because Ironman is such a long day that, there was definitely times when, and this is going back to that when I was talking about with these pros and they're trying to do, should I go 5 minutes faster a mile or whatever, and I kind of, like I said, I kind of knew I had it and I kind of knew I didn't have it or whatever. And so, but I'm toying with that, right? But I'm not toying excessively, because we've all also seen days that start out slow and, the longer you get into it, it's like, whoa, where'd this come from kind of thing. But I think if you force that issue too hard, I think you got to force the issue a little bit if you want to play with it, it's sort of like always on that run. I mean, even though it wasn't my best run ever, I was trying to find it, but I didn't go over the edge. You know what I mean? Sort of like, okay, I feel strong enough to pull this off, but do I have a little more speed? And I'd toy with that and I'd push that a little bit, but I didn't, I wasn't pushing, 9 minute miles or something like that. I'd maybe try and get it down to 9:45 or something like that and see how that felt for a while and be like, it's back to that thing. Can I sustain this today? Or can I sustain this? And, just being able to know what that is. And it's just a gray area, man. I just think that there's a lot of gray area in that sometimes. It's like maybe a little faster. What's going to, we've all seen it where people do wake up, like I say, you're doing a 12-hour day or something like that on a race. And, you have highs and lows and things of that nature, but you don't want to get too high or too low. And that's, that's the continuum that you have to work on. And it's just it's fascinating because, our body, like we say, don't ever believe how you feel totally, because it is going to change, and it does change so much. So you just want to keep those swings, a little bit more in check, I think. And like you're saying, that can be the difference between an hour faster, an hour slower, if you go over the edge too much, And then, I mean, just the one example, like 2 years ago when I had that flat and it was a 45-minute thing, I felt great that day, and I was just kind of going at maybe something similar to what I would have raced this year. And then I got back on that bike and I felt great, and I tried to make it up. And, and I think for about, I was at mile 40 and I had 70 miles left, and I'm like, I'm going to try and make some of this time up. And I did for a while, and then it all came back at the end.
It all came crashing down.
And then that just blew my run out. But, so it's like saving 10 minutes here over 70 miles or saving an hour on that marathon. That's really what happened. I mean, that's a crystal clear example of how I sort of learned.
Oh, dude, like, I mean, this is a small side note. It could be like a 9-hour podcast. But, I mean, we talked about this exact thing before we went live today. And, I mean, it's also a societal issue in making short-term poor decisions that are going to result in more frequent short-term decisions and bad outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you don't fuel well in a ride, and so you get done with your ride and you go for the trunk cookies.
Yeah.
and you get the huge spike and you're like, God, I feel better. Even though, like deep down, you're like, this shit's about to come crashing. And then 3 hours later, you're taking a nap and you feel terrible. Like the constant like insulin and sugar spikes we like constantly go through, and the same thing. It's all, I know this because I'm a recovering alcoholic. Like that was my life for forever. Was the only baseline is a roller coaster. Like you're either way up or you're way down. There is no steady. Like there is no ability to stay. And I think it's also like it's been woven into us to continually search for, more highs. And then the higher we get, the farther we fall. And then the farther we fall, the more higher we have to go to then compete with the low of the low. And so we in our day-to-day lives, we tend to make poor decisions that leave us on this like continuum. Right. And so like, if you think about, and you and I both are steadfast in this and talk to our athletes about this all the time, about how important it is for us to train and to develop athletes that just improve their overall systematic health before all of the things. Right. Like neither one of us are gonna try and tell an athlete to do anything that is reckless, that is going to, compromise. Like here's what you might be able to do and squeak out an extra 5 minutes, but it's going to wreck this part of you, but you know what? It's worth it. Like that's not how we roll. But it's so if you think about the stability of you as a person, right, is if you were training at a sustainable level that is, mostly aerobic. So it is, you're taking care of your CNS and your PNS, like you're never like overstressing your body. You're doing things that, again, like make yourself feel better after rides and runs and swim instead of like feeling destroyed. Right. And that's because that's destroyed feeling that makes you feel like you need something else, like to recover from it. So imagine a life where as you're an athlete, you're treating your body like that, where, like maybe twice a week max, you're just like going hard, but the rest of the time you're just like, you're more like massaging the system, right? We're small gains that are great for my body, great for my health. We don't have this huge roller coaster, right, of the weekend warrior like a lot of athletes have. And then like the fact that, a lot of people do that with their food. Like they continuously up and down and undulate with the spikes and then the crashes, and the spikes and then the crashes, and with caffeine too. Like, so you're living this like roller coaster life for a lot of, like day to day with the two, honestly, like two of the most important inputs in your life is like, and they're all surrounded by the things that you do in life. And the work's the same way, like, and it's how it's all connected. And I think the more that we think through how we can smooth it all out to see this really fucking boring straight line, right, of just like steady. It's not exciting, right? There's no huge blip up, but there's also no crash. Like how much more stable and like much better that is for us as both people, but also as performers. And I think, again, like going back to the decision-making piece, I think that is a part of the practice that we lose in life, or is we're impatient, right? And you get on your bike and you're treating your intervals and your body like, it's Amazon Prime Day. I want it in 2 hours. Like, instead of playing the long game, like we make decisions, the impulse, instead of like the cart. Like you can put in your cart, and if you on a Monday, if you still want it by Sunday, you can buy it, but you can also remove it. You probably wouldn't buy 80% of the stuff you buy. Same thing goes for decision making. I think it's part of that process that we have created, right? That we live outside of training, that then also obviously like transfers to training, right? And then transfers to, how we feel and our mindset. It's all interwoven, and I think it's just, especially as we enter, for a lot of people, right? Like not everyone, but as we enter like the rebuilding phase of who you want to be and what you want to accomplish next year. It is a great idea to kind of like, write down, in one column, work, one column life, one column, day-to-day fueling, and then one column training. And look at how, obviously you can't control everything, but what can I do to minimize, in those 4 columns, it's certain things to then see like the straight line, as straight of a line as possible. And then after you do that, right, if I can then overlay all 4 of those, like what's going to allow me the straightest line, that right there will create a better, more well-rounded athlete, person, individual, spouse, professional. Like that is, I think, honestly, like that simple of an idea can be transformative in how you approach like your next year and your ability to sustain whatever it is that you want to sustain. Right. And I think it is really, things are that simple, but yeah, I mean, I know it's like a small, like we go on for like 8 hours but I think that's like a great thing to think about. And then how like all that does or does not apply to like how we race or how we choose not to race.
Yeah. I just came to me, but I was thinking about, like, you talk about decisions, and, we've been saying this for, since we started this podcast, but it's like when you're on that bike or you're in the swim, how does this decision affect my run? Right. And, it's sort of like, I was just thinking, like, how does this decision, cause we all want to have great sleep, and we know that sleep is one of the best things ever. It's like all through the day, it's like, how does this decision affect my sleep tonight? And I just think it's like, it could be applied to so many different things. Yeah. It's sort of like we all, I mean, I do. It's kind of like that thing with coffee or whatever. It's sort of like, we just want a little bit of a higher high. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, you should know when we can cut off our highs, and it's just difficult, sort of like getting off a blasting bike ride and being like, yeah, give me some coffee. And then I'm going to just, I do that too. It's like we get done on a long bike ride and it's like, give me some coffee. And I'm feeling great. I want to feel greater. And yeah, it's like that bike,
It's the same, right? Yeah. It's like your cup
I want to feel better.
Your cup of coffee at 11:30 might feel good for like 5 minutes. But then the penalty you're probably going to have at 3 is worse.
Yeah, because you get a nap and then your sleep's gone. It's just like...
You nailed it. And I think, again, like that goes back to like the minimizing the roller coaster and asking, like, is it really worth it? And I think the more you make those decisions, you're like, it's not worth it. The easier those decisions become to not grab for the instant fix, or to not try to go an extra rep or go too hard, when, there's 3 more intervals left, but, or my foot's got like a slight niggle, but I really want to run hard today. I'm like, that's on you. Like, just run easy or don't. And don't run at all. Like, take a day. Easy spin. Like, the more we make smarter decisions, the easier it is to make smart decisions. And then it just becomes our normal everyday decision. It's no longer an intervention of changing your mindset or behavior. It is now your behavior. It is just who you are. But the same goes the other way. Like, the more you grab that 2:00 coffee, the more likely you are to grab that 2:00 coffee. The more you treat yourself every other day to a late night, bowl of ice cream, guess what? And you're going to love it for 15 minutes. And then at minute 16, before you even try to sleep, you're going to fucking hate yourself for it. Because not that ice cream's bad, because ice cream's freaking fantastic, but you get what I'm saying. It's not, but then eventually you're already going to have bad sleep. And then I know this life. I let it for God knows how long when I used to drink, that I would drink so much and so hard. And there were even some days I'd wake up and I'm like, I'm never drinking again. I'm never, please, dear Lord, to the heaven above, like, please, if you can just make me feel better just for a minute, I promise I won't drink again. 3 hours later at the bar, drinking again, like that just, and then you feel bad because you can't stop. And then because you feel bad, you reach for it again, and it's a vicious cycle. And again, like that's, you're not all alcoholics, obviously, but like we do those same things on a much more minor, less serious level. That's way more acceptable, right? than it is to do those things. And I think we all have those tendencies, all of us, inside of us, to be honest with you, whether it's picking up your phone when your kid's trying to talk to you because you can't not, or ignoring someone that's trying to reach out to you because you're, I think like it comes down to me. It just comes down to just being a lot more mindful of things. And again, like steady lives are probably boring for people, but man, like I think, you see that steady line increase and increase and increase and increase. And, it's like building your own personal cake, like that, it's like that aerobic baseline cake, for your life. It's like the more steady it is for longer, the better it gets and the easier it is to hold. And you're not chasing the highs and the lows. So again, like longer cast and, we got here from the Ironman World Championships, but again, like smooth it out. And I think like the more you can do that and make those decisions, the better you're going to be in and out of training. And I think that's something that we should all aspire to. And I think as coaches, we should be, encouraging our athletes to continue to make more of those decisions, each and every day, because a fresher, smarter, empowered, healthier behavior athlete is actually, way more likely to continually make these better decisions. And it's just, again, just like people say, like triathlon is just a lifestyle, it's just what I do. The same goes for, the rest of your life. It's no longer I'm making these changes. It's just, the first 6 weeks of your quote unquote diet, it is what it is. But then after you stick with it for 3 months, it's no longer a diet. It's just what I do or what I eat. And I think the more we can include those intentional habits, in our life to keep it steady, the better off we'll be.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. It's like decisions create habits, and
always have.
Life's tough,
always
man.
Will.
It's tough. But yeah, it's looking at the long game, man.
Who doesn't love a good trunk cookie?
I know. I'm saying, man.
You're not gonna.
The more we talk about it, the tougher it's getting to resist right now.
No, right? I should quit talking about it. But it is. It's like, it's funny you say that, because like Hayden and I were eating dinner last night, and we pull from this like deck of cards, because we try to have dinner as a family together every night, and so we pull from this deck of cards. It's got questions, and we kind of go around the table and answer them. And last night I'm having pork tenderloin, shrimp, and an avocado. And it seemed random to most people, but it was really good. But anyway, I'm not thinking about anything ice cream related. And all of a sudden, like Hayden's like, if you had to pick, it's like, what's your favorite ice cream flavor, and what's your favorite topping? And I was like, well, straight up ice cream, it's probably cookie dough. Or excuse me, it's cookies and cream. Just like straight up, it's cookies and cream. That's my favorite. Favorite topping on an ice cream, easily a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Oof.
So he answered the same, and he looks at me and he goes, "You want to go get Andy? You want to go get Andy's?" And I was like, "No, we're not doing Andy's. I'm thinking about it now, but no, we're not going." But it's like, isn't it funny how like you can be so like far away from it and not think about it, and then like someone like that's advertising and marketing, right? It's like you mention it and you're like, damn it, now I can't not think about it. And it's funny how that works. What's your favorite ice cream?
I think it's like a sea salt caramel kind of thing.
I can get behind that.
Relatively straightforward, but
yeah, that's a classic. Favorite topping?
Yeah. Not big on toppings.
Yeah, you don't want to taint the ice cream.
No, I told you my goal in life was to start a restaurant called Simple and Bland Food, so I'm sticking with that. It's just I'm not into all the.
Everybody's wait is 5 minutes.
No one gets to seat right a minute.
It's like, everyone's seated at 5 minutes. Yep.
Here's your appetizer. It's like one bite, but it's just the flavor explosion. No, give me like fries or something. But no, seriously, man, you don't think advertising works? Forget about it.
Oh, dude, it 100% does. It sucks.
Think about the shit you see on TV and what our minds are filled with.
Yeah, dude, I know, right? I mean, it's funny. Like, again, we'll stop here in a minute. But I said this to Allie the other day. I was like, isn't it sad that 80, I think we're watching the football game, is like 80% of the commercials you see are for shit food, pharmaceuticals, and alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's like, go buy and eat and consume all this shit that's going to increase your likelihood to then get sick, to then need these drugs that we're going to then sell you.
Boy.
I know, really, we don't have time for this, but I would just, that's what I was, I was, like I said, I went and got I got to get a passport photo at Walgreens, and I walk up there and I'm like, all right, she's like, all right, it'll be 15 minutes. You can walk around and do whatever and kill some time. And I walked away and I started mumbling something. And Hayden was like, what'd you say? And I said, well, honestly, there's no way it takes them 15 minutes, but I guarantee you they found that if you tell people it takes 15 minutes, then they're going to walk around and eventually buy something because you're killing time in the stores. They probably track passport photo purchases from back in the day when they were instant. And then now they tell you that's gonna be 15 minutes. And then they come back and check your total receipt and like, oh, you've got some deodorant, you've got a magazine, you've got some gum, you've got, a new bottle of detergent. And they're like, just tell people to kill some time in the store and they're going to go buy something. And I was like, buddy, that is a microcosm of how the world works. And he couldn't have given less of a shit. But I was like, this is my dad teaching lesson for the day. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea, but it feels right to me.
Yeah. And then add 5 to 6 hours of daily repetition on the daily news, pitching doom and gloom. And we got it all covered.
Seriously, dude. Oh, man. Well, this has been your daily message from the Crushing Iron podcast. We do love you guys. We appreciate you. Good luck to everybody racing this weekend. You got Ironman Maryland going on this weekend. Lace them up and strap on that wetsuit, baby. Keep those jellyfish at bay. As always, go to our website, C26Triathlon.com. It is your one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for a new coach, a coach in general, or a coaching change, the off season or the next year, check out our coaches tab. Look through the coaches that we have, and if you see one that seems like we'll pair you with that coach, or you can just inquire and fill out a form, and then we'll help you do the rest. So you can check that on the coaching tab. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at C26Triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at C26Triathlon.com.
All right, man. Have a great weekend. Go Vols. Are you guys playing?
Yeah. Yeah, we got UAB.
Wisconsin has a must-win weekend against Maryland. Oh, it's come to that.
Well, the Dolphins are 0-2, and we're just absolutely terrible. So, yeah, it's all about college football.
Yeah, unless you live in Green Bay.
I mean, we couldn't be any worse.
Oh, well,
we
whatever.
Couldn't be any worse.
Got to pay your players more, man.
Yeah, exactly. You got to pay the players, man.
We need more money. We need more money.
Worst culture there, man. Like, we're probably going to beat by 30 in Buffalo tonight.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, keep an eye on that. All right, dude. I'll see you later.
All right, man. See ya.
Yep.